Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video. In today's episode we are going to be doing another unit review, this time taking a look at everybody's favourite one-man army, Sly Marbo. In case you've not seen one of these videos before, what I like to do is begin with a unit overview, taking a look at the stats, weapons and war gear. We then move on to the deep dive, getting into the nitty-gritty detail and analysing some of the tactics for the unit in question. Finally, we wrap the whole thing up with some closing thoughts and a score out of 10. And so, without further ado, let's set some traps, draw first blood, and dive right into today's episode. Okay, so the first thing that I want to say is I love Sly Marbo. He's one of the coolest characters in the Guard, if not all of Warhammer 40k. He first appeared in the 3rd edition Catachan Codex. That's right, Catachans had their own book. Now to be fair, it was about as thick as a paper napkin, but it was still very cool. And it amazes me that what essentially started off as a Rambo ripoff has become, over the last 20 years, one of the most established memes in all of 40k and one of our most beloved units. Quite frankly, gentlemen, Marbo is the rule of cool, and for that reason alone, you should be taking him in your armies. But if for some reason that feelings-based argument is not enough to convince you to take him, and you're some sort of soulless automaton that needs hard facts and data, well, now let's take a look at his unit overview. To start, he is an elite choice, and he's also a character. You'll find him in the same area as your Catachan and your Commissars. He is a single model. There's no squad of Marbos. He is a one-man army. And his stat line is very impressive for an elite level character. In fact, his stat line outdoes a lot of HQ level characters, which is kind of crazy. He's got a movement of 6, which is fairly standard, but then it begins becoming exceptional. Weapon skill 2+, ballistic skill 2+, strength of 4, toughness 3, 5 wounds, one of the few elite characters with that many wounds, 5 attacks, more than Acadian Castellan, leadership 7, and a 5+ save. Like many special characters, Marbo comes with some unique equipment. In his case, the Ripper Pistol and the Envenomed Blade. The Ripper Pistol has a range of 12, it's pistol 3, it's strength 5, AP -2, and 2 damage. It's like a heavy bolter, but with extra AP. In addition, it's a sniper weapon, so you can target enemy characters even if they're benefiting from Lookout Sir. And on top of that, just like other snipers, if you get a 6 to wound, it does a mortal wound in addition. Considering that very impressive ballistic skill, getting 3 shots from the Ripper Pistol is almost guaranteed to get 3 hits. And when you start putting this into some low level characters, you're likely to get a couple of wounds, and if they fail their saves or they don't have an invulnerable, you could wipe out an enemy elite character pretty easily just with Marbo's shooting. But where he really shines is in close combat. His Envenomed Blade gives him +2 strength, meaning as standard, he is strength 6. That's the same as Strachan. Again, it's AP -2. Now, on its face value, the weapon is only damage 1. But as long as you're attacking a non-vehicle model, so any infantry or monster, the damage becomes 2. In addition to his spicy equipment, he comes with some tasty abilities. To begin, he actually benefits from regimental tactics, which means you can order him. If you tell Marbo to take aim or fix bayonets, suddenly his attacks start going up to AP -3. Or you could tell him to move, allowing him to get extra distance and potentially closing in for those charges. There's nothing in here that says Marbo can't receive Perfect orders either, so if he doesn't quite finish his target off and manages to survive their counterattack, you could get Marbo to fall back and then charge back in thanks to a Commissar. Speaking of orders, it is important to note that Marbo does come with the platoon and regimental keywords, so any orders that you put on him will splash around to other people and vice versa. His next ability is Hidden Ambush. During deployment, you can set up this model in ambush instead of setting it up on the battlefield. If you do so, then in the reinforcement step of one of your movement phases, you can set up this unit anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. Until the end of that turn, you can reroll charge rolls made for this model. Essentially, Marbo can deep strike, and when he does, he gets to reroll his charge distance. He also has a really cool ability called Like Fighting a Shadow. He's in the walls. He's in the goddamn walls! Anyway, moving on. Once per battle, at the end of the fight phase, you can remove this unit from the battlefield. If you do so, in the reinforcement step of your next movement phase, set this model back up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. If the battle ends, this model is not on the battlefield, it is destroyed. Basically, if you drop down and you make your charge, it's fine. But if you drop down and you fail your charge, even with the reroll, it's okay. Because Marbo can go back in reserve and he can try again next time. You can't do it all the time, but remember, it basically gives him one do-over. He has one final ability called Loner. Basically, it means he can never be your warlord, despite the fact that he is a character. Overall, Marbo is packing some serious heat. He's got a fantastic stat line, brilliant war gear, and some really clever abilities that give him a lot of tactical flexibility. It's not a surprise, he's a big favourite in the guard community right now. But that covers the unit overview. Now let's lift up the rock, have a look underneath, and get into the deep dive and the detail. The first thing to say, and we touched upon this before, is he's actually got really good shooting and combat. He puts out a huge amount of damage to attacks, meaning that Marbo is very good at picking off lone characters and isolated units. I've used Marbo quite a bit. The ideal scenario is he drops down and he goes after an enemy character and he takes out that linchpin. That's what his fluff wants him to do anyway. Unfortunately, most players are smart enough not to leave their main characters or their key units exposed, and so normally doesn't get to go after those really traditionally high value targets. However, that's not to say he's bad. Oh no. He has a really important job. Going after small, isolated 5-man squads that your opponent has left behind to hold a home field objective. I must have won half a dozen games with Marbo just by dropping him down, shooting the enemy with my pistol, hopping back up into the sky, dropping down the next turn, shooting the little 5-man squad again, and then charging in and finishing them off with the envenomed blade. Taking my opponent's backfield objective off them and putting them in a really tricky situation. Now they have to decide, are they going to keep pushing forward with their army like they were planning on doing, or are they going to have to send something important back to deal with Marbo? If they don't, he's going to happily sit on their objective the whole game, wiggling his bum at them and scoring me more points and denying them their own primary. In fact, if you want to see an example of Strachan doing just that, then at the end of this episode, I'll make sure to link to a tournament after action report where I used him. In pretty much every single game of that tournament, Marbo came down and he caused some serious shenanigans. I promise you I'm not lying or exaggerating. In my game 1, he was able to finish off Angron. That's right, Angron, the demon Primarch of the World Eaters. I'm not going to go off on a massive tangent and I don't want to spoil anything for you, but seriously, go and check that video out. The shenanigans that Marbo and Strachan get up to are just hilarious. But we'll get back and refocus onto the unit review now. Another way of using Marbo, which is slightly less cool but probably a bit more tactical, is he has a great way of scoring extra boots on the ground points. Because he is just a single model, you can deep strike him generally into most nooks and crannies, and it's very difficult for your opponent to stop you from doing that. Because he's got the platoon and regimental keywords, if you deep strike him into a table quarter where you've got no other units, he'll actually score you a boots on the ground point. Against a savvy opponent who's locking down their objectives and protecting their characters properly, these victory points may be all you get from Marbo. But that's not a problem at all. He can get 2 VP, because turn 2, you deep strike down, you get your victory point, and then you use Like Fighting a Shadow to return back in the sky. Then turn 3, he comes down again and gets you another victory point. Now for a lot of characters, that wouldn't really be a good investment. But Marbo is really cheap. He's only 50 points. And if you use him to get some boots on the ground, you're basically paying 25 points per victory point. That's a really good deal. Also, because of his low points cost, he trades really well and he's kind of expendable. If Marbo drops down, shoots something, charges it, doesn't quite go his way, and then he dies, it's not really the end of the world. It was only a 50-point character. But if he drops down and does fantastically, or just scores you some boring victory points, then he's still been totally worth it. It's almost like a low-risk investment. It's almost like a no-loss scenario. You can chuck him around, do what you want with him, and if he pulls something off, brilliant. But if he doesn't, you don't care. On top of this, it means he trades really well. In 40k, trading is all about how many points did you invest for how many points did you kill. So if I have to spend 200 points on a big mega smash character, but then it spends the whole game just chopping through Gretchen and only ever earns about 100 of its points back, that didn't trade very well. But if I can take Marbo, drop him down, take out an enemy intercessor squad between his shooting and his charging, he's only cost me 50 points, but that intercessor squad has cost my opponent 90 to 100 points. That's a really good trade for me. However, despite how awesome Marbo is, he does have two very big flaws. The first one is he is fragile. He's only toughness 3, and sure, he's got 5 wounds, but no invulnerable save and no feel no pain means even a cursory volley of bolt of fire will see him going to meet the Emperor. This means he's pretty much guaranteed to die every single game. And if your opponent's taken Assassinate against you, then you could be giving up some victory points. But if he doesn't die, it's also a big problem. In a weird sort of way, you almost hope that he drops down, does his thing, and then passes away, because he breaks Inflexible Command, which is another really good secondary for the guard. Because he has those aforementioned platoon and regiment keywords, it means that he needs to be within 6 inches of an officer in order not to break Inflexible Command. He doesn't have a Voxcaster, so he absolutely has to stick close to your command structure, or you could be giving up 2 victory points a turn for Inflex. In a really close game, where every point matters, against a very smart opponent, or one that has the maneuverability to just disengage from Marbo and never let him get to grips with them, he could cost you a lot of victory points. Imagine if he deep strikes in turn 2. Sure, he fails to charge, he goes back into the sky, comes back down turn 3. That means turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, if Marbo doesn't manage to get his ass within 6 inches of an officer, he's costing you 6 victory points. Sure, he might get you a few bonus boots on the ground points. Hell, might even end up getting you 4 extra boots on the ground points. But that's still a net loss of 2. I know there's going to be a few experienced guard players down in the comment section right now saying, yeah, but Inflexibles are guaranteed 15, right? Yeah, it is if you've got your infantry around, but without the infantry, it's not a guaranteed 15 at all. You only get 1 point for having all of your vehicles near your officers. And you only get the 2 bonus points if you manage to kill an enemy unit whilst under the influence of an order. It might be getting to those later turns where either you don't have the killing power or your opponent is tactically hiding units and being very cagey, where you might only be scoring a victory point a turn on Inflexible and not the usual 3 to 5. So taking all of this into account, what is the final score for Marbo? I'm going to give him a really solid 7 out of 10. I think most guard commanders could benefit from having him in their armies, and he's just a ton of fun to include in your force. Every time I've used him in a game, it's just been brilliant. He's always achieved something of note or done something heroic. You might be wondering why he's not a 10 out of 10 when I'm layering all this praise onto him. Basically, it comes down to 3 things. Firstly, He's so fragile, it makes him one-dimensional. It would be nice for Marbo to be more than a one-man magic missile. I think if he had an invulnerable save or some kind of -1 to hit or anything that could make him a bit more durable, it would mean he'd stick around a bit longer and he'd be a little bit more interesting. I took another point off because he does have that potential to break inflexible command. It might only come up in one in every few games, but when it does come up, it could cost you the game. And lastly, I didn't give him a 10 out of 10 because that implies he's an auto-include, meta-breaking, meta-defining unit. He's not. He's 50 points of fun. You can include him in your list and have a great time. Or you don't include him in your list and you don't really notice the difference. He's not mandatory in any way, shape or form. But all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think about Slime Marbo down in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed today's video, smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Also, if you found today's video particularly informative or entertaining, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. By becoming a supporter, you will gain access to the Mordian Glory Discord, an online community of almost 1,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord, and we've got channels for discussing tactics, army lists, painting, hobbying, and we've even got a pretty spicy meme section as well. And before we wrap up today's video, I just want to say a thank you to the latest channel members. So thank you to Nope Maybe, Dean Walker, Ulti Bacon, Rake Knight, Lewis Fisher Wells, Rowan Finch, Pepcac Central, Rotten Dot, Dakota Templaris, Sven Bockman, Alex Moriel, A Belly of an Army, and the Randomo Guy. Thank you guys for doing your part. I also want to shout out the latest Patreons as well. A big thank you to Jeff Silverbloom, Sven Langbean, Captain Neverscared, and Deathcore Commander. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a special thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a massive thank you to Alan Blunt III, Bon Vert, Mark Panconi, Ridemaster 134-1, Ross Miller, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys. Your generous support is amazing, and it is a big part of what allows me to do Mordian Glory full time. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.